Every time a modern professional opens their laptop, they step into a hurricane. Decision makers today are subjected to a relentless, daily flood of information. In this environment, attention is stretched so thin that time becomes their absolute scarcest resource. Nobody has the spare bandwidth to sit down and evaluate a cold pitch or blindly consume a new piece of lead generation material. Because of this, traditional tools of thought leadership are failing. Those dense white papers and long-form text posts you spend weeks writing are routinely ignored. They demand a massive deposit of trust up front before the reader even knows if the payoff is worth their time. To understand why this happens, we need to look at this visual model of the information deficit. This diagram maps exactly what happens when a massive, overwhelming influx of daily data inputs tries to squeeze through a highly restricted processing bottleneck. If you fail to adapt your communication to fit through that specific bottleneck, your professional expertise remains locked away from the exact people who need it most. Choosing not to use dynamic, immediate media is an active choice to remain invisible to a massive segment of your potential market. In an era of automated spam, decision makers use human rapport as a filter for credibility. To get through that filter, you have to provide a highly condensed TLDR summary of your value, while simultaneously establishing the human connection that makes that data worth trusting. Traditional text is structurally incapable of meeting both of those demands at once. Without that instant connection and brevity, your prospects simply move on to find answers somewhere else. The most reliable communication tool capable of bridging that attention gap is video. The unique utility of video comes down to its sheer density. It is the only medium that lets you deliver a fast, easily digestible summary while simultaneously injecting your personality, tone, and human nuance. Because of that density, you can prove your trustworthiness and competence in the exact same fraction of time it takes to deliver your initial pitch. We can see exactly how this works by looking at this three-part structural model, which outlines the core mechanics of video in a modern sales strategy: authority, the sales cycle, and shareability. Let's look at authority first. Instead of typing out a claim that you are an expert, video forces you to actively demonstrate that expertise in real time. Moving to the sales cycle, video preemptively removes friction. By recording answers to frequently asked questions, you clear away objections before a prospect even articulates them. Finally, their shareability. Because of how algorithms process content, a video is mathematically more likely to be passed along across platforms, triggering a network effect that expands your reach far past your immediate connections. These three core pillars work in tandem to turn video into an essential, preemptive engine for generating revenue. You don't need a massive, high-budget marketing campaign to make this work in your everyday practice. In fact, the highest engagement often comes from the simplest format: a quick practical tip recorded at your desk, an unscripted customer testimonial, or a straightforward Ask Me Anything session. This creates what we call asymmetric production. This is a dynamic where the massive output value you gain from these simple formats heavily outweighs the perceived barrier to creating them. The standard for thought leadership has shifted. It is now measured not by the volume of an academic paper, but by your ability to deliver clear, dynamic, visual communication. If you're still hesitant, it's likely due to a persistent misconception: the idea that entering the video space requires a professional film crew and studio lighting. As you can see in this side-by-side comparison, the overwhelming logistics of a high-end film set are completely unnecessary for this strategy. Authenticity and clarity now vastly outrank high production value. To succeed, you strip the requirements down to their absolute bare minimum. You only need a clear message and a standard smartphone. Remaining invisible is a choice. The tool required to establish your authority in the market is already in your pocket. The only remaining hurdle is the decision to begin.